forgot to mention the fine work of the Fine Gael councillors and the Fine Gael Minister for OPW, Brian Hayes, in alleviating the flood defence measures in the Clontarf area. But I want to begin my piece, Cathaoirleach, by, I think, commending the people who worked in the aftermath of the flooding and the storms, and in particular we should remember the late Micheál Riordan, who died in West Cork, Cathaoirleach, in the aftermath of the storms. And it just shows that our public servants, those who work for Aircom or the ESB, and in some, are people of absolute incredible commitment. And you know, the ESB in particular, in the restoration of power, should be commended for the work that their staff have done. Cathaoirleach and Minister, the flooding in Cork City has again devastated many businesses and some homes in the heart of our city centre. Regrettably, the action to the 2009 floods in Cork did not prioritise a long-term plan to protect our city. While criticism of the length of time it is taking to implement a flood defence system is legitimate, it is also important to understand that the flood situation in Cork is not straightforward. Progressing a scheme for the city involves a complex and tedious and detailed preparation to ensure that the best possible long-term solution is found. And I want to say, Cathaoirleach, in a non-partisan way, that Minister Hayes has been very engaging with not just members of the House of the Oireachtas, but also with the officials at City Council and County Council level. And I want to commend him for that. And I want to say, because of him, progress is being made. On the 6th of February, Minister Hayes visited Cork and met with the Lord Mayor, councillors and city manager and business representatives. The Minister said it would cost 100 million and that it would be made available to carry out flood protection work for Cork, and I welcome that. He made a very significant point, Cathaoirleach, when he said that the possible date will be in 2015 for a 3-year project. And in the interim, a forum between the OPW, the City Council and local businesses is to be set up to explore interim measures that can help alleviate the problem. It's a pity it takes 3 years to get this done, but I welcome the Minister's initiative and commitment to the project. Last April, the OPW commissioned and appointed Arab engineers to develop proposals based on the 2006 catchment flood risk assessment and management CFRAM study for the Lower River Lee catchment. The main objectives of this work include a flood forecasting system to facilitate optimum decision-making in the dam discharges, a viable, cost-effective and sustainable scheme to provide protection along the Lower River Lee and through Cork City against residual fluvial flooding and flooding through high tides and surge levels. And they're very important in the context of Cork City. In July of last year, Arabs held a public information day to outline the study and the process involved, and next it is intended to bring the emerging preferred option before the public in the summer of this year, to have a date for further public information and an information day. I think it is important, Cathaoirleach, that this is done because following this scheme, which will be further refined, an environmental impact assessment will be completed and a formal public exhibition will commence towards the end of the year. It's important from a Cork point of view, Cathaoirleach, because this scheme will be the largest flood relief scheme ever undertaken by the OPW. Between 50 and 100 million will be spent on this project, and that's why I welcome the public consultation and the long lead-in time, because given the substantial investment required, the work can only be commenced when the right solution is found for the City of Cork. The traders and the homeowners require this, Cathaoirleach. In addition to this, apart from the proposed scheme for the central city area, studies are also being advanced for Douglas, Toker, and a flood relief scheme for Douglas and Toker is currently being advanced by Cork County Council, with funding to be provided by the Office of Public Works. And I want to commend the City Council and County Council officials and workers too in the aftermath of the flooding in Cork City and the storms in Cork County for their diligence and commitment, and I should have mentioned them at the beginning of my presentation. I welcome the fact that Cork City Council, or Cork County Council, has signed the contract for consultants in the past 2 weeks to take the development of a flood relief scheme for Douglas and Toker. Very important. And I would hope that these proposals will be brought forward for public consultation before the end of 2014. The OPW has made provision for the cost of these schemes in its multi-annual budgets, with funding to be reviewed, subject to depending on actual budget allocations and review from time to time. Cathaoirleach, the incidents in Cork are unfortunate. They're not the first or the only floods we've had in Cork City. We've seen them in areas like the Middle Parish, in Douglas and Toker, where we've seen people out of their homes, businesses being interrupted, and in some cases never reopened. We need to see a faster, more efficient response time for businesses and for homeowners because of the costs involved to them and also the costs to the state. It's now 7 years since submissions were received and sought for this River Lee CFRAM study. 7 years is too long, and it shows that the protection of Cork from floods must be prioritised, and I'm glad that under Minister Hayes it will be, because we can never allow what happened in the past where Cork was neglected from 2009 to now. Because the fear and the uncertainty in homeowners and in business people cannot be allowed to continue. It must be put at an end. If members of this House and those outside the House will cast their minds back to 2009 and to the floods in the middle of Cork City, in homes in the oldest part of Cork City, we haven't even still seen the protection of those people being prioritised. And we accept that Cork was built in a marsh. But today we have a duty of care to the homeowners, to the families and to city centre businesses to protect them. And I'm glad the Minister for Small Enterprises here, Minister Perry, who does so much work for small business, because these are the lifeblood of our local economy in Cork. Minister, since then the flooding in Cork has cost an estimated 100 million. But the city still remains exposed, as I said, and businesses remain at risk and homes remain vulnerable. And our task must be to alleviate that uncertainty and to alleviate that heartache and that tension in the lives of many people. I've met homeowners and business people who tell me when they see a flood level rising and a flood warning for Cork, their hearts sink. There's fear. And we can't let that continue. And I'm glad Minister Hayes has given it priority. But it's no wonder that people are frustrated and become disenfranchised and disenchanted with politics and with bureaucracy, when after 5 years since that flood in 2009, we're only now getting to the end of a process. The Chamber President in Cork, Gillian Keating, voiced the frustration of many businesses on local radio and in local media when she spoke about, the lack of action and the frustration of business people. And I don't blame business people for speaking out. The protection of the second city of our country must be prioritised. No economy can thrive when its business centre is subject to persistent and regular flooding. The people of Cork need and demand that the remedial works are prioritised. They must finally be given some hope that a long-term solution will be delivered, not promised, delivered. And I welcome the engagement by Minister Hayes with the local business leaders, with the county council and with the city officials and local councillors. I'm pleased that we have a minister who at long last, with responsibility for flooding, recognises the importance of the economy that is Cork, and that the local homeowners in the city centre of Cork deserve certainty. This minister and this government have given a commitment to invest in alleviation measures that will provide robust long-term protection for the city is to be welcomed. It is good for Cork, it is good for Cork business, it is good for the residents, and Minister Perry, it is good for the national economy that our second city is open for business. While the development of the scheme must be prioritised and fast-tracked where possible, there must also be an immediate focus on interim measures, and the local forum involving the OPW has to play a central role to delivering an adequate interim protection. This body must get to work as soon as possible without delay, providing ongoing assistance to those at most at risk in Cork City, be it in Ballyvolane or in Blackpool rather, be it in Douglas or Toker, but in particular in the middle of Cork City. And I'll conclude in this, Cathaoirleach. I'll conclude in this. This is about the people of Cork, it's about the city of Cork, it's about Cork City being open for business, it's about job creation and job retention. And I would appeal to all involved to engage in the process by making the submissions. But let's expedite a situation whereby we can end the uncertainty and take away the fear that people have experienced when they see a flood warning for Cork. That is our task. That is our duty, irrespective of who we are. And I really want to see that happen. And I hope that if Minister Hayes goes to Europe, which I expect he will as an MEP, that the new minister, whoever that will be, will prioritise the city of Cork and the people of Cork.
Thank you very much, Deputy Buttimer.